Today, using the new content from the Caves and Cliffs update, I'm going to show you a bunch of really cool new tricks and techniques you can use from 1.17 onwards in your landscapes, outdoor spaces, you name it. So subscribe if you like what you see. I will be host, I'm Simply Sark, and I'm going to show you how 1.17 is secretly a gardening update. Okay, so first, you can actually create these really neat little hedge designs by combining the new moss blocks and the azalea bushes. As you can see, these really exude this fancy vibe and kind of create this sort of manicured look like you're on some swanky estate. They're really simple to make, but what you've got to remember is that the azalea bushes can only be placed on grass type blocks like moss, grass or dirt. So you have to be a little clever with how you organize them, but you can make some pretty fun little patterns. Obviously, there's lots of different types of gardens you can make, and I've always been a fan of Japanese style Zen gardens. I think the new geodes and stalactites, or is it stalagmites? I never know. I think they're both really cool new objects to use for this kind of garden design. You can repurpose geodes you find and move them somewhere else. Here, for example, I've actually just scaled it down and removed the calcite layer, so we're left with this little mini geode, which still looks surprisingly good. If you've ever lived somewhere rural, you'll probably have seen some broken down old tractor or plough hanging around in a ditch somewhere. But a lot of gardens actually like to use this rusty old style intentionally to make something look dilapidated. I thought you could put a Minecraft spin on this idea, and my mind immediately jumped to pistons. With the new copper blocks and lightning rods, you can make some pretty convincing broken down pistons, which I think look great. You can kind of mix and match the parts with different blocks to give a bit of variety, like using warped trapdoors instead of acacia. I'm a big fan of the new Lykan, which I always pronounced as Lichen my whole life, and now I'm a bit embarrassed I've been saying it wrong all this time. Lichen is a new type of light source / vegetation, and it actually has a pretty wide range of uses. For example, here I've used it to create an almost leaded glass look, which works really nice if you're trying to make almost like a Victorian style greenhouse design. I found cyan glass works best, and you can put it on both sides if you want that shattered appearance to be even more pronounced. This one's a bit of a weird one, and I'm surprised how well it works. You can actually use the new pointed dripstone to create trees. Yeah, I know, it's a bit odd, but the jagged uneven surface really does look pretty good, especially if you're trying to create something like a palm tree. To go further, you can combine both stalagmite and stalactite together, and it creates this effect where the trunk of the tree almost looks like it's been hacked at with an axe, which is great for like a lumberyard or something. So this next one I posted on Twitter when they first came out, and people apparently really liked this idea of using the azalea bush as a table. And that's the thing, it really does work quite well. If you imagine the green leaves as a cloth, it's basically like a little diner table. Any chair type block works, but I quite like the spruce stairs myself. You can use the regular azalea bush, or you can try the flowering version if you want something a little more decorative. Okay, so this one is one of my favourites. Again, if you're going for a Zen type garden, is it ever really complete without wind chimes? Here you can use untarnished copper slabs, chains, and the copper lightning rods to create some awesome looking wind chimes. To make it even better, you can actually make this functional. If you place an amethyst bud on the back of the chime, you can make it play sound. When you throw projectiles at the amethyst bud, it will play the chime sound effect. How cool is that? I'd like to come back to Lykan, because like I said, this block is very versatile. I think they've intentionally made this block very desaturated so it doesn't stand out too much, so it works great with the grey stones. What's really cool though is you can create an entirely new type of mossy cobble by using Lykan. Because Lichen can be placed on every single face of a block, you can entirely cover an object like this boulder. Great if you want something a little frostier than the default mossy cobble. I do have to say, I am so glad they added copper to the game. Not only do we now have a true workable metal block set to use, but it looks so good. I think copper works so well as an outdoors landscaping block, and you see it all the time in real life gardens. The weathering mechanic is super cool, and I love that it has an inbuilt color gradient, which I don't think we've ever had before with a block set. I love the sound it makes when you walk on it and place it, and to be honest, it's so easy to make great looking outdoor areas by just like placing it down. Great block. And I'm not done with moss. Not only do we have the block, but we've also got a carpet version which works identical to the wool carpets. What's great about this is because moss blends so well with grass, hidden lighting has never been easier. Look how great this looks. Mojang, why have you let this happen? Why have you watched us for years place down jack-o'-lanterns with the leaves on top and lied to us about how they ever looked good? There's kind of a theme here because Mojang has kind of blurred the line with this update between what is lighting and what is decoration. They've decided, why not both? Lichen, moss carpet, but also the new Glowberry Vines. Great for lighting, but I also think they work really well to create swings. You can't make them move, unfortunately, but they look pretty sweet, and you can eat them too if you get hungry, which is a bit strange. So it's not out quite yet, so I can't give you a perfect example, but 1.17 is of course getting a new archaeology system. This is interesting all by itself, but we're also getting pots. Now, they're probably not going to look like this specifically, but pots, vases and jars are like the thing to put in a garden. I was dragged around enough garden centres as a kid to know the limitless amount of pots mankind has produced. Or you can create these fake versions where I've used flower pots and sea pickles to create a pretty decent imitation. This one isn't something you can do in survival, but it made me laugh, so I wanted to show you anyway. If you put the azalea bush in your head, you get a new haircut, which looks interesting. You can even put flowers on if you're feeling pretty. Also, if you're not convinced by moss, did you know that it eats diorite and granite? Seriously, if you don't want diorite or granite, you can just turn them into moss. How cool is that? A new type of block in 1.17 is called the Spore Blossom. It's a giant flower that you can place on the ceiling, which is nice, but it has a cool effect which I think everyone is gonna love. So this actually spews out little spore particles, which is awesome because Minecraft is in sore need of more particle emitters in general, but also because you can create some really nice effects with it. For example, if you place a few spore blossoms underneath the canopy of some trees, you can make it look like leaves are falling down. I love that. I think it creates such a cool little atmosphere. More on the water side here, but there's all kinds of new ways to decorate stuff like ponds in this update. For example, you can add some of the new drip leaves alongside lily pads for a bit of variety in colour and size. You can also create these neat little reeds by placing down a stack of lime green stained glass panes and adding the new candles on top of it. You can use any colour, but default lime, magenta and green probably work best. Going back to copper, you can create these awesome pipes by using the lightning rod. I think this looks so good because, like I said, copper is great, but also because I love the idea and aesthetic of rusty old pipes and water systems. Not only can you use lightning rods, but you can also combine this with acacia fences and even red sandstone walls to add in some variation in width to the pipes. I was playing around with the drip leaves, which are kind of neat, but also noticed that these blocks work really well as benches, tables, and shelves. Now, this wouldn't necessarily work for all environments, but if you're going for an outdoor look, these look pretty good, and you can create 1 block or 2 block versions, depending on if you're using single or double chests. Also, you can create these funny little barrels for decoration, where it looks like the drip leaf has grown inside the barrel and is lifting the lid off. No, we are still not done with moss. Something that is so cool about this block is how it actually lets you incorporate stones into grass environments. Seriously, up to this point, we've basically just been stuck using dirt as a medium, but with moss, you can create that grass aesthetic, but use stone instead. And honestly, I'm not sure if I've ever seen something blend this well. It looks spectacular. This here is cobblestone, and this block over here is grass. Look at it. The fact that we can diffuse from cobblestone all the way to grass that seamlessly is crazy. The gradient is absolutely beautiful. As a cute other thing, if you're into building greenhouses or markets, if you want to add an extra level of detail by placing down some farmland and adding potatoes, carrots or beets, you can add the new hanging roots underneath to simulate the roots of the vegetables poking through, which looks pretty nice. So these were just some ideas I had, but I hope you can see what I mean by how a lot of 1.17's features work oddly well for gardening and landscaping. No complaints from me, I think there's some great stuff in here. But either way, that is all we have time for today. I really hope you enjoyed and hopefully found something useful. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I've been Simply Sark, and I will catch you in the next one.